Welcome to Reject My Reply, the number one show for the world famous podcast, Pardon My Take, where your voice can be heard. If you have a gripe with Hank or Big Cat, or maybe somebody missed a great one-liner from PFT, then you can hop on here, get your reply off, and be heard. So, on today's episode of Reject My Reply, we have a number of topics. The outro intro song, where'd it go? Summer of Hank, is it over? Also, we'll be discussing intern Huey, what happened to him, where did he go, as well as the Mount Rushmore duel. Big things for this first episode. Let's get into it. The elephant in the room is the intro and outro song. Everywhere people are asking, where did this go? We haven't heard anything from Big Cat. We haven't heard anything from PFT. And of course, nothing from Hank. But there may be reasons for that. It's probably some legal thing that they just can't discuss. I'm sure they would have mentioned it if it wasn't. However, that's not a very fun take to have. And we don't expect these guys to follow the rules. I mean, they're the bad boys, right? That's why we like them, because they're the bad boys. So we need answers. Break some rules. Be the bad boys that we thought you are. Don't worry about lawyers and stuff like that. Now, maybe it's not lawyers. Maybe there's some other things going on. DDT3210 on Reddit had a beautiful take on this intro outro music situation. Huey thinks it would be fun to reach out to the Harmony group to ask about a live performance of Electric Avenue. Great idea, Huey. THG wasn't aware of PMT's use of the song because Hank never actually bothered to license it. Very plausible way to go, Hank. Huey then gets fired and we lose the intro music and the outro because Hank never realized you had to pay for stuff like that. Again, very plausible. This sub is as conflicted, the sub being the subreddit, is as conflicted as possible between the exit of Huey at the cost of losing the beloved songs, and then Hank, of course, gets promoted. I, for one, kind of want to go with this idea of why we lost the intro, outro music. It's a lot more fun to me. So until we hear from Big Cat or PFT or somebody on the podcast about why we lost this, I'm going to go with that idea. Huey somehow screwed it up. I mean, we'll get into Huey himself, but maybe made a mistake or maybe it was Hank really that made the mistake in this scenario. And that cost us the intro, outro. Nonetheless, people just want to know what's going on. Come on, guys. Which will transition us into intern Huey, who was not let go, but his time ended as a summer intern very abruptly. I thought it was I felt like he was there for the long haul. There was never, to my knowledge, mention of him being there short term. It feels very much like a situation where they just didn't fit well together, or Huey himself wasn't interested in continuing on with the job. And maybe the last straw was the JOC interview. Maybe he caught some more flack online from people for not knowing who Jerry O'Connell was. Or maybe he wasn't really an AWL, not into the Pardon My Take podcast. I don't know. I feel like I miss a lot of Pardon My Take memes or inside jokes, but not knowing who Jerry O'Connell is a hard one to do. I wouldn't have a clue who he was without the podcast, that's for sure. I've maybe seen one of his movies, but not knowing him when you're supposed to be a fan of the podcast is somewhat of a red flag. Now, I will say this about Huey. I didn't hate the guy. it's a very popular thing to just jump on the bandwagon of hate for newcomers. Max, for example, a lot of people did not like Max at the beginning, and now they are in love with Max. I'm a Max. I am a big Max lover. Okay? I would titty fuck Max. Just saying. But what I'm saying is that Max was hated at the beginning, if I recall right, and now he's loved. Huey maybe could have turned things around if he didn't want to stay on. I wish the best for Huey. It's possible that he just didn't fit in, though. Moving on from intern Huey over to today's podcast episode where we had the Mount Rushmore of duels. Very anticipated episode. Slight letdown. Now, if you haven't listened to the podcast yet, go ahead and listen. Pause here. I'll give you some time. Slight letdown because it wasn't it didn't decide everything. Now, it's cool because we get another duel, I guess, or another Mount Rushmore. And I want to say this. This should be a snake draft. You should not be fixing. This gives so much power to the number one overall pick. And that's how it went in the polls, is whoever picked first won. It's way too much. If you do the best quarterbacks of all time, I get Tom Brady, I get Patrick Mahomes, I get Joe Montana. It's just whoever gets first. At least with the snake draft, somebody would get Tom Brady, and then they would get Patrick Mahomes plus Peyton Manning. And maybe you could argue that Mahomes and Manning is a better pick than just Brady. Now, still, Brady would probably just win that draft because that one's not a great pick in general. Come on, guys, pick a better topic. But that's all I'll say is it should be snake. I don't want to sound like I'm trying to defend Hank, although sometimes I do like to defend Hank, which leads me to my next topic. The summer of Hank is over. It's over. He lost the draft. He lost the Mount Rushmore. There should be no redo of this. He straight up lost Mount Rushmore season. Summer of Hank is officially over. He whined so much after losing this draft. I never watch, pardon my take, on YouTube, but I went on there to watch the duel, and I've always kind of thought, oh, it's kind of funny when Hank whines and this and that and that. Looking and seeing his face when he's whining is so annoying. I completely understand what these guys have to go through now. And I turned on Hank a little bit. I've always kind of been a Hank apologist until having to watch him actively whine with the face. And Hank, you could win me back still. I think he's great for the show. But Summer of Hank is officially over. We'll see what happens on Wednesday's episode. To end off the first ever Reject My Reply episode, I have a couple of top comments from Twitter and from the YouTube comment section from the podcast. So, AWL top comments at Pat Yes123 on YouTube said, Dan Orlovsky has 3,132 career passing yards, which, fun fact, is the number of times that Hank complained on the podcast this summer. And then over on Twitter, at Zach Wave said, Hank complained his way into a reduel. See you next time.